Hello, this is a question for Mr. Siren. The outstanding waters and the application of existing discharges is one of the reasons you're focusing on areas that don't have any discharges upstream. It's because CDBHE interprets that as long as you don't change anything you're doing in your existing discharge.
Yes. You want me to expound on that? I don't think I really need to. I think though, I use that example and it sort of goes to the plumbing, which is sometimes it's easy to find places where we think we could do something good without, and it really benefits the whole community. And I think that by looking at areas where there aren't discharges, we're less worried about damaging some economic driver for the community, and more, we know that we're protecting an asset. So.
John, it's my turn back, right? Would there be any conflict between outstanding waters and forest management where they're doing something in one of the basins? Any potential for that?
I would say there is some potential because the Forest Service should take, in its decisions, it should take into account an outstanding waters designation. But on the other hand, if these activities have been ongoing, they'll see that as something that has been ongoing and hopefully wouldn't curtail anything. Peter, do you want to add to that?
Sure. This is John described there is an outstanding waters proposal that's going through the formal rulemaking process with the Water Quality Control Commission right now. And Southwest Water Conservation District is a party to that hearing, and we are kind of wondering a little bit and have some concerns about how this could affect Forest Service land use plans and permits. So we're kind of working through that issue right now.
And it's a good question, and I think trying to work through that with Southwest is a very useful exercise. Hi, good friend Hattie, who's going to ask a sympathetic question.
Yeah, and I think I know the answer already, so it's, I think I already know the answer, so it's a little bit of a quiz. Are temporary discharges allowed? So kind of to your question of Forest Service activities, if there was to be a temporary discharge into an outstanding water, is that allowed?
It is. You could do a temporary degradation, I think kind of in the range of weeks or maybe months. So those activities that are deemed important and might degrade the water quality for a short period of time, those are allowed.
Commissioner Church?
Let me extend that question just a little bit. 416 fire, for example, we had a lot of aluminum, high aluminum runoff down into the Animas across some meadows, but the water was black, full of carbon. It lasts longer than weeks or months. You know, it could last a year, possibly 2 or 3. At what point does that disqualify the outstanding waters designation?
I'll take a stab at that. I think that the outstanding waters designation is a little bit nebulous because it's always been, initially it was applied to all wilderness areas and to all national parks. For a long time, that's the only place it was applied. The very first place that it was applied outside of a national park or wilderness area was Hermosa Creek, as you're pointing out. And clearly the water was degraded because of the 416 fire, and potentially somewhat degraded still now, maybe not. It's recovering pretty quickly. There's not really an enforcement mechanism. The enforcement mechanism would be if there was permits, if there was dischargers on it, but there aren't any. So the main concern is, you know, what protection does it really afford if there's no enforcement mechanism? But potentially there could be an enforcement mechanism over the long term with the Forest Service planning and their permits. But I don't think, no, it's not at risk of losing its outstanding waters designation.
So there's probably a lot of other water quality issues related to low flows that we haven't even mentioned here. So if you two could touch on some of those within streams and reservoirs.
The main, I mentioned temperature. I kind of blew through that really quickly, but temperature increases algae growth, and of course, if you have nutrients in a stream and you have higher temperatures, you get algae growth. Then the algae dies off, and as it degrades, the bacteria takes up all the oxygen, and you can get low dissolved oxygen in rivers and streams. The other thing is that can very much happen in lakes too. Higher temperatures, lakes are actually where we have a lot more nutrient issues, and lakes could be significantly impacted by the higher temperatures that we're seeing. It's a hard issue. There are temperature standards for lakes and streams throughout the state currently, and so far there hasn't been any kind of mechanism to account for climate change. The Water Quality Control Commission hasn't really grappled with that, and that's kind of one of the issues that the Southwestern Water Conservation District is going to be noting in our hearing statements to the Water Commission. Hey, this is an issue that we really need to start thinking about, and how do we address this issue?